Bullshit.
The No BS Marketing Show is brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Enam Noor, CEO of Insight and Health. But first, let's hit the bullseye. One of the most neglected target markets by companies is their own team members. And by team members today, I mean employees and strategic partners. Our gig economy, G-I-G, our gig economy continues to grow, featuring talented people who work for various companies as independent contractors and hopefully become strategic partners. Companies neglect this key target market of their own employees and their strategic partners because companies often don't realize the importance of building internal messaging campaigns to reach and influence both employees and strategic partners. It's an essential part of what I call cultural messaging that ensures knowledge and action on a company's MVPs, mission, values, purpose, strategy. If you're neglecting those independent contractors, strategic partners, freelancers, whatever you want to call them, you need to stop right now. Make them a key target market. According to a Rand Corporation study this year authored by Nicole Mastis, an economist and associate professor of healthcare policy at Harvard Medical School, some 40% of Americans aged 65 and older who are currently working were retired at some point in the past. Returning to work is sometimes a necessity for those who haven't saved or invested enough, but even those who might not need to work for financial reasons actually are still doing so. They enjoy the intrinsic gains of work, like interacting with others, achieving goals, and being part of a team. This means companies need to communicate with employees and strategic partners, young, middle-aged, more senior, on an ongoing basis. Make them a key target market. Build a specific cultural messaging campaign to reach and influence them on an ongoing basis. In other words, hit the bullseye with your cultural messaging. Our guest today is Enam Noor, a results-driven senior executive with more than 15 years of proven results in marketing, technology, and management. He's a talented entrepreneur who drives rapid growth by seizing business opportunities and penetrating lucrative markets. Enam's CEO of Insight and Health, a data-driven decision-making technology that connects industry experience, marketing strategy, and technology to provide a result-driven engagement platform for their healthcare clients. In episode 1, Enam walked us through his background. 17 years old, comes to another country, chooses where he's going to go. He chooses Chicago, goes to school there, ends up spending about 20 years at Chicago, then goes to the East Coast. But while in Chicago, graduates, has a great internship way ahead of the game as far as building e-commerce before there even was e-commerce. Then he works a couple jobs and realizes, hey, my destiny, my dream is to have my own company. He starts a company called Desme, D-E-S-M-E, for design media, and it really was a marketing analytics company in the late 90s through the 2000s. And he ended up taking this small company and getting it ranked in the top 10 in the country based on what they did from a marketing solution-driven analytics company, really by technology. He always had a passion for using technology. He then realizes that it's better to build the IP than to build a big design firm. And that's why he started Insight and Health. He began to tell us at the end of episode 1 how they work with these big health insurers to be able to take all the data that those health insurance companies have about different companies and try to about different customers, I should say, and try to focus on wellness by informing us, members of a particular insurance plan. And as he walked through it, I kept thinking, I want to convey that this is what Amazon and the Facebooks are doing. And then he said, we want to take and do what Amazon and Facebook have done. And he pointed out that healthcare is behind business to consumer companies, and financial used to be, but they're catching up a little bit. So I want to start with that again to begin episode 2, because as a listener out there, especially our marketing professionals, they might be thinking, wow, this sounds crazy. Why is it that they need this function when you already have all the data and you've got your Marketo, you've got this, you've got that, you got your wellness company. So I do want to make sure we just open episode 2 with again touching on how you're basically taking what someone out there listening knows that Amazon does. And we buy something, so Amazon then tells us about something similar to that, and we don't even mind because we're kind of like, yeah, I was going to buy that at some point. I'll look at this, maybe buy it later. You're applying that now for health companies, health insurers. Talk about the challenge they have and why they're behind and what is happening, that there's these entities that aren't communicating with each other.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Data silo is a big challenge. Anytime you want to create this personalization, right? It's much easier for a company like Amazon because data they own. They have the activity. It's online, right? Because you when you go there, you got to log in, you got to sell, you got to get your receipt, your email. Like you have an IP address. Like they get it. Like it's much easier. For insurance company, it should not be difficult because they have massive amount of data. Data is not their problem. Every time somebody goes to a doctor's office, the clinical data, the claims data, they get that information. Guess what? Why? They're paying for it. So they know. They know who's who, just like the financial industry does. The problem it becomes is what I have seen, and again, this is where sometimes client loves me, and sometimes they go like, "Oh, are you telling me the truth?" I am, but they look at data not as an asset. They look at data as an operational byproduct, and I'm not saying they all do, or all they want to look at it that way, but that becomes the reality. That okay, I've done the activity, I've seen it. We paid the doctors, done. Okay, move on. Next year we're gonna re-sign more members, and we'll figure out day one how we're gonna handle them. Last year is last year. I think the first step they have to start doing is start looking into their data as an asset. So yes, I'm not there yet today, but I have data over last 5, 6, 7 years of all the members, all their activity. Let's start using those as our asset in day one. Rather than worrying about, hey, I'm going to do this digital campaign, I'm going to do this. Well, let's identify the problem first. You can't solve a problem unless you know your problem, because you're going to get pigeonholed again because, you're not just doing the full automation, right? So they will go invest in the fantastic platforms and whatnot. It's looking at a lot of time. I'm not saying every time, right? They're looking at it, okay, now on. Here's what we're going to be doing. But I think what it should be first, let's debrief what you have done, because it's not all about just you, the company. It's about the consumer. You have been dealing with them over the last 5, 6, 8, 9 years. How and what you have done. Let's learn your members. Let's understand your customers. And then let's matchmake what you're best for, whichever segments you should go, because then it's a win-win for everybody, because it's not a product for everybody, right? What they're selling, because they may say we have 5 products, but they may specialize in diabetes type, delivery only. Then why not find the best ones that matches you and then serve up, right? So when we come in, we look at it the first thing, and it was funny. I was having a conversation with a client today, and there's like, our data is a mess. How do you do matchback? I'm like, well, we have a patented platform that is the nucleus, the driver of everything. You have to have clean data. If you put garbage in, garbage out, it's not going to work. So if you're trying to deliver personalization, all of a sudden you call somebody with a different name because your data is wrong, you're actually delivering bad experience. No experience is better than bad experience, right? So we try to first look into what do you have data level, and what we have really spent a lot of time, like our secret recipe, right? That's a patented data cleansing model that we have built in. And we eliminate human touch there. That's where we utilize machine learning that actually takes the data, follows the business rules, and creates an output. Now, let's say the output is about 80%, because the other 20% didn't match. Nothing happened. It doesn't slow down the process because 80% are lights out. They go get their business rules. The platform now starts incubating that 20%, continue to search more as it goes, and tries to identify, can I make that a complete circle? And at the end of the day, if it cannot, those segments sit somewhere because nothing could have been done, but that doesn't slow down the process. But at a human level, when nothing's 100% matching, you're not like sending it out, right? So we automate the process a lot faster. Now, what, like in a perfect example would be, let's say, machine starts picking up the trend and understand Bill and William could be same. But in a normal matchback, you'd be like, oh, that's not the data. But the business rule wise, machines are smarter, right? When I say smarter, it means like the human gives them what they need to be doing. So that process creates a very fluid data flow for us. Now, we take that data that I'm saying that, how do you make it an asset? They have good data now. They have meaningful data now. And that is then now becoming the asset. Now through our platform of the automation of the campaigns, now we can trigger all the other activity. But if we can solve that, you're not going to solve the true problem, which is, how do we, and then when it doesn't work, they just stop. Like, no, it doesn't work. We tried. We spend on Unica. We spend on, this. It doesn't work. Like, you've been in healthcare, you know it. Like, this industry, they spend the money. They're like, yeah, like, it was funny thing. The client asked, like, so who's your competitor? I walked them through today, and every name that I throw out, she goes, we have them all, but we still have a problem. Because here's our problem. And then it all lead up to the data challenge. So they can't automate unless that's solved, right? So that's why, like from my experience, that's what I have seen, the bottleneck. So we don't just look at from the technology side of it, because for the last 10 years or so, I've been involved in the healthcare side of it. And then I've seen the problem. So again, very similar to No BS. We come in, we cut the chase, we try to solve the problem first, and then lights out, you go where you want to go.
And I think that's why from the minute we started talking months ago, I realized that you're onto something. When you use that phrase, look at data as an asset, having been at a senior level at a health system that had a health insurance plan, what you're talking about is real. And it's with other clients of ours, it's real. And it's even beyond healthcare. And that's why I'm so excited, because I think this problem, if a marketer's out there listening to this right now and they're not in healthcare, there's a good chance that something similar is happening with data in their industry. And it's about what that client's saying to you. We have all 4 of those companies in 4 different realms that I thought were your competitors, and they sort of are, but they're not. That's what she was basically saying to you. She then sees that I still have this problem, and you're the one that's trying to integrate all this to make the data better, stronger, and then achieving the goal.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's a problem definitely in healthcare, but I'm seeing it in other industries, maybe not quite at the scale, but the problem is that people have all kinds of data that they, haven't dedicated the time to look at even.
Yep.
When you're in a mid-market to small company, you're a $50 million a year company, you have data that you haven't even really studied. Yep. And then the second thing is you often have multiple entities talking to each other, but not really talking to each other. So the clients are frustrated. That's why I really believe you're onto something.
And that's why it's exciting to me, because I know all of our clients have data. Data is not the problem. So that's exciting to us. That means we know we can make an impact. We can solve the data challenge first, the automation first. Then we can go lights out and start doing all of those. But then you can't just do it one time. This should be always happening. It's an engine. And the new data is coming in should follow through the same automation, so you never fall back, right? So I think that's what we think. We see from our clients. We hear, they're like, well, that's if you're really doing what it is. And then they see examples like, oh, no, you are doing it. It is working. Yeah, we want to do it. How quickly can we, turn it on? So like it's exciting to me. I think it's impacting our clients. We see it day in, day out. I think we want to impact more. We want to get more clients, on board, because end of the day, I think what we're onto is we want to be, making the population healthier. And again, yeah, we're all going to make money by doing so, but then it's a win-win for everybody. We have to do that. It's a challenge we have. Our country is not as advanced as other advanced countries in preventative care. We need to get there. And then that's what we're trying to push. So,
and that's certainly the big idea out of all of this. So last night I was at an event and I was talking to a healthcare client, and small company, maybe 5 senior living communities. And he kept talking about this data issue because I was challenging him, because he said, yeah, all I really needed was this website. That's why I just had somebody internally do it. And I took a deep breath, because the website's weak. And I took a deep breath and thought, well, we're at this Laramore's event where they're having this bourbon tasting, and they got a jazz band, and there's 100 people in the Laramore's downtown store, which I don't know if you've been to their downtown store, but it's pretty sweet. You need to get there. I know Enam's dressed great, but we got to make sure you're dressed in Laramore stuff.
There you go.
From this day forth, but I'm wearing my Robert Graham today. Brought to you by Laramore's. But so at this event, and this comes up. And it's the same issue where this is a tiny company, and they're not tiny. They're very successful. But I'm saying compared to what these clients you're working with are huge.
Yep.
But even that small company with 4 or 5 senior living communities has a data issue because they're not really using the data they have. And so he thought what you said earlier, even in the 90s, people were doing this, and he's still doing it. He just basically had somebody design a website, and the company's got a good reputation in their website, and there's no real social media presence. There's no real app of any sort. There's no integration of the data they already have, and they're still doing the old type of outbound calls and so forth, but they're full.
Yeah.
So he's looking at me like I think he wanted to say, dude, drink your bourbon and shut up because I'm making some good cash. I'm doing great. I'm at 100% occupancy in 4 of my 5 buildings. Why don't you shut up and go over there?
Yep. No, it's that's today. Are there, advanced looking, competitors coming out that are looking at different aspect? And, the question I always say that, I stayed at that hotel because I had to, or did I stay there because I wanted to? So again, just because occupancy is it high because they want to or because they have to? Because once the consumer is getting empowered when they don't have to, because they can go to the options they want to, because they understand their data better, it's going to become challenging for that same client, right? Maybe not today, but it will come because consumers get that experience. Great example would be Uber. Look, they didn't solve taxi cab challenge, right? That always existed, right? You still have a vehicle to take you A to B. What they did, they empowered the consumer. You tell where you want to go. You pick who you want to go with. You rate them how they did, like empowering the consumer, right? So I think with the data, with the technology, it's going that direction. And some industry may take longer to be impacted, but it's coming because consumers are used to all their other activity. They allow them to, I do it because that's what I want to. I like to. I don't need to do it because I have to, right? I think it's going to come as generation. I know you mentioned the episode 1, how different generations are looking at things. Look, whoever is senior now may not be in that age group anymore because millennials are becoming, seniors. Like it's going to switch.
Yes.
And you have to be prepared. So again, it's awesome. It's good for today, but where do you want to go? Right, so
you hit the nail on the head with the one comment you made, because I think this company's successful, but a lot of it is they have a medium income to lower income people that are going because of the distance to where they lived and the communities are there. And at some point, this person's either going to want to expand beyond this, the ones he has now, or is not going to be at 100%, and he's going to need to then actually use data and need to actually use no BS marketing, where he finds out what people really want. He builds the messaging, he creates his product based on what he learned, and he segments and drills down by more than like 2 variables.
The funny thing is, everything is going back in the days, like marketing is not new, right? There's marketing when somebody has a need and somebody had a product. Hey, I have a llama, you have the rice. Take it. It's creating the need and somebody's buying, right? The way we pursue people has changed because of technology, because of media. We all like the experience back in 50s, 60s. We walk into the butcher market and they're like the grandpas. They all know, like, hey, have the quick conversation. The coffee is ready. Like personalization, right? And then they already know the cut of meat you want. But that's what the Amazons of the world are doing it in mass, in big scalable model, right? Because that's what technology should allow you to do. We're still doing the good old school model, personalization, but can you use the technology, the artificial intelligence to deliver that? Because end of the day, it's a consumer, whether that's a landlord, your rent or your healthcare, and that consumer has multiple different purchasing going on throughout the day. It's not just healthcare for them. Same person gets a paycheck, goes to the bank, deposit that, right? Wouldn't that be awesome? A world where every experience was same? But if you think about it, old ways, when you walked into the bank, you see the banker, like it was kind of there, but it was like, in a small segment. So like I think that's why people got to think it through, not just what they're doing. What are their customer used to doing other things? And it catches up to them, right? So
that's Enam Noor, the CEO of Insight and Health, on the No Bullshit Marketing Show. And since it is the No BS Marketing Show, we have to ask you, think back, because you have this amazing career story that I really enjoyed hearing about, coming to America at 17, choosing Chicago, staying at Chicago for a while, getting your college education, having a great internship when you were ahead of the game on the e-commerce before there even was such a thing. First couple jobs, realized you wanted to be an entrepreneur, start a successful company, become one of the top ones in the country at that, but realize, hey, I think intellectual property is probably better than replicating things. It's going to give you more opportunity to scale, so you start Insight and Health. Throughout that career to date, when were you a BSer? When were you maybe a tough boss, or were you an employee that was difficult, or when didn't you communicate as well as you could have been? Because this show's about leadership and communication. So I'm putting you on the spot to think of a time when you go, okay, here's what happened for about a year when I was at this company. Here's what I think I was doing wrong. Here's what I did to fix it, because that's going to really help our audience.
No, it's a great point. And I can look back and see those happening and how I evolved into who I am. When I first started my first company, I thought I was the smartest guy. I'm smarter than my client. Maybe I was, but I would act that way too. I would actually say, well, you're not the right fit. You don't understand. But what I learned is it's not about, that's the easy way out. If you're just being, like, hey, I don't want to work with you, that's the easy way out. What I have learned is, how do you win that person? If you're really smart, you can actually trigger and identify why don't they get it. You are BSing because you're taking the easy way out because you think you're smarter, but you're not. You're actually not as smart as they want you to be. So how do you, so throughout the, time frame in different events, I've learned that. And I think the best way you can, kind of like analyze that, my mind works very analytically, obviously, that's the industry I'm in. One of my business partners, he was an older gentleman way back, and Bruce Schroeder, that was his name. He was actually, he was in the ad agency. He produced that Parquet butter commercial.
Really?
Andy Warhol, they used to work together.
Wow.
But, we had some working, relationship, and then he's seen that in me, that I'm like that pistol, like just goes. He goes like, look, just do one thing. Never reply an email when you're angry. Sleep on it. At least one day, next morning, reply. And what that did to me was, well, in the beginning, it was a little bit better email next morning. But over time, I really now understand what I need to be doing. And I try to apply that not just on email, on any situation. If I go into a client place and at the end of the day, they go, you know what? I don't get it. I don't take that as an insult anymore, that like, what the heck? I have the best tool. What do you mean you don't get it? No, I look at it more like, okay, I did something actually not good. I didn't simplify it or explain enough for him to really, or her to understand, I do have the best product. So I challenge myself on every single activity now, taking that lesson that I learned, which was really like, I'll be like, here's the deposit. I can work with you. Like, again, that was the early stage, but I was younger, and I got a couple gray hairs now, so I can, but again, I think like, that was a, turning point for me to really understand, take your time. When you're getting frustrated, something's not working, understand, and then apply that even with your, team members. Like, one of the things that in our company, we never say I, it's we. We never want to say, oh, my graphic designer didn't do it. No. If you're at the front end, you take the responsibility. And we have to put client first, because we are who we are because we have clients. So again, I've applied that one thing that I was a BSer, I was thinking, into many, many areas that learning thing that like take your time, analyze what's not working, try to fix it, try to win back the opportunity. And there's many ways it could be applied, right? It's funny, like we're talking about healthcare technology. Here we're talking philosophical, like, things, but it all makes sense. And maybe my psychology minor kicks in sometimes. I don't know, but but I was a BSR. My kids may still think I am because I'm like, I can win this, but we all have a competitive edge, right?
Yes.
So it turned into more of a competitive edge only now than a BSR. So.
That's a great answer. One of the other things I'd like to have the guests do for our audience, our listeners, and I've heard from feedback from listeners about how much they like this is there a particular tool that you can mention that is something that can help with their productivity, help with their leadership, help with their communication? I had one person go in depth about Asana. I had another person a year or so ago talk about SEMrush. I had people talk about different tools that they use. Some people were as simple as how they plan their day, week, month. Other people were how they track things. So is there a particular tool, being a technology guy, that you think could help just about any of our listeners?
That's a great question you ask, because typically that's when I go, Marsha, my wife, like, she's a tech geek. What tool do I be using? Like I'm a techie, but I'm not a I'm a non-techie. But I'll say one thing is I think being in the running a business, organizational activity is important. If you're not organized, you can't. If you don't write down, like I'll give you a funny story real quick is. So, we have offices, overseas here and everywhere. So culturally, people, are different how they work. And I remember I walked into a vendor office one time, and it was in overseas. It was not our company, and nobody had Notepad. So I asked, like, how are you taking notes? I'm giving you info, what I need to get done. It's like, oh, it's all in our brain. Then we'll put it on the computer. It's like, no. You know what? I can't work with you guys unless next morning meeting I see everybody has a notepad. You guys have to write things down. So where does that lead up to the technology, right? I think there are a lot of good tools out there that can organize you better. If you have a smartphone, you can use the calendar feature, start putting things in there, reminders, things like that. I think we all need that little push for us to be more effective. It just, half the day I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot. Like, you don't have to be, I forgot, because, how many people has smartphone nowadays? They all do. So my recommendation would be look into those and start maximizing. If you have a smartphone, don't just use your phone as a phone or 2 apps. You go to Facebook, that's it. There are things in there that can organize you better, that can make you better. Even to a point, like with the new iOS and all those, like, it could take your sleep pattern and change your when should you wake up. Like, again, I think it may not be for all, but it could be for many people. They'll be like, oh, wow, I had no idea. I didn't know. Like, how many people really knows you can actually tap into your smartphone and ask the AI-driven chat, like, hey, what should I be doing today? They can actually say, where are you going? Because it can look at your calendar. It can tell you the weather, like in a fingertip, right? Isn't that cool? Like if I wake up. So I think that assistance that you can get from the smartphone, maximize it. But again, the Samsung is going to be a little different than iOS. But in general, if you have a smartphone, in my opinion, start using it because it has a lot of artificial intelligence built in. It is designed to be your assistant.
And I've found that so many of us, even if we're somewhat into using the smartphone, still barely scratch the surface of leveraging what we can do on it.
Yeah. And believe it or not, they all has built-in assistance. It's supposed to be guiding you, not just one thing, my day-to-day, you know, what meetings coming up. Like, if we can start maximizing that in technology, I think it's better. I like to look at things holistically rather than like, hey, there's a software just used. It's, because there's many software that does these similar things very well. So start utilizing your smartphone better rather than just going into Facebook.
Enam, was there anything you thought I'd ask you that I didn't, or is there anything else you want to mention?
No, this was actually very fantastic. I like the conversation, and more I talk with you, Dave. It's just intriguing because you mean it, what no BS marketing is. And again, I've done podcasts before, but this is intriguing. Like you made me think and flow the conversation. So it was I was very impressed. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
I like it.
I love this guy. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To our loyal No BSers out there, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show, brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Sign up for the No BS Marketing Weekly Update. You'll receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. It's light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. I guarantee you'll take something away from it if you scan it even. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.